A little birdie once told me that if you want to understand the reason for why a conflict or war is happening, you have to know who benefits from it. And by benefit, we are talking about them rands, them nairas, them chankuras, the dollars. Okay? So we're going to be having our part 2 discussion of who actually benefits from the conflict that's currently happening in the DRC. I also have a rather interesting fact to share, and that is the fact that 9 women die from cervical cancer each day in Kenya. I don't know if you guys knew about this, but I certainly didn't. So let's talk about it and let's see how we can raise awareness and try to mitigate this situation that's currently happening in one of our beloved countries. And finally, I have such an amazing story to share about phenomenal women who are using waste management as a way of rescue, as well as avenue for creating wealth for those in their communities. I can't wait to share because it just inspired me and it just left me feeling so good and so wholesome about being an African. So I can't wait for you guys to hear it. Until then, stay tuned because we're about to have a good time. Hello guys, and welcome to another phenomenal episode that we're about to have. As you can see from my face, I'm excited to get into the nitty-gritty of this conversation because we're about to get into the juice, the substance, the meat of this very, very crucial topic that we are discussing. If you do not know what I'm talking about, then I am going to be giving a bit of a deep dive into who actually benefits from the conflict that's currently happening in the DRC. This is our part 2. If you haven't watched the first part, just take a bit of a pause, click the link over here, go and check it out, and then come over here this side once you're all caught up. But if you feel like it's a bit too much, time's not on my side, well then do not stress. The first part was really just covering a brief history of just the conflict that has been happening in the DRC, its major players, and just some of the reasons as to why this conflict has prolonged for as long as it has, essentially. So in this particular episode, I will be touching on 2 specific things. That is all the minerals that the DRC has, and then I'll be talking about the hydropower project. I believe it's called the Inga River or Inga Dam, but we'll get into the details of everything, okay, in a minute. So stay tuned for that. And again, I want to give this brief disclaimer, which is the fact that 2 things are going to be, or must be noted rather, let me say that, must be noted in this episode. The first is the fact that we are giving a different perspective or a different angle to this conversation. I do not want this to be a platform that's going to regurgitate things that are already out there. So if you are wanting to actually understand the current affairs of ins and outs of what's happening, definitely feel free to check out other platforms that I've also very much spoken about in previous videos. And secondly, I am actually not gonna give a direct answer on who exactly is the beneficiary of this conflict. And the reason for that is because we are all going together, come to that collective conclusion, using the information that's presented to us and exercising our muscle of critical thinking, because I do think that there's a lot at play here that we are being presented with and we are also not being presented with. So with that, let me not waste any more time, and as always, do note that all the facts that I'm sharing will be put somewhere here on the screen as I'm talking, because again, I do not want to have these videos be too long. So now, in terms of the minerals that the DRC deals with, there's about 14 major minerals that they have. The first being cobalt. Cobalt is a critical component that is used in ion batteries for electric vehicles, smartphones, laptops, and other electrics. And this really is like a major mineral in the fact that the DRC supplies over 70% of the world's cobalt, thus making it an essential, mineral for green energy transition, as well as an essential mineral for the tech industry. And guys, this is actually like, I don't think we actually understand how major this is, because for me, just in my little old mind, one thing I often think about is that if this was a country that had a good amount of political stability and ensured that it was able to really leverage, right, this, competitive advantage that it has, it could really, potentially see the economic development in the sense of like the country's GDP and various other factors, like just be reflected, like in a totally different light, right? So basically just change drastically or tremendously, right? So yeah, that's one thing I often think about. And I often think about that because one of the things that like these kind of wars and these conflicts, they do is that they allow for other, parties to be able to get these resources at little to nothing, essentially, right? So yeah, that fact really just had my mind blown. The second mineral is copper, and copper is, highly conducive, and it is used for electrical wiring for motors as well as for transformers. And so also from a global point of view, the DRC really is like a leader in providing this mineral for a lot of countries when it comes to like their infrastructure as well as their current technology. Another mineral that they exporting is coltan, and coltan is used also for electronics like smartphones, laptops, gaming consoles, and again, as you can see, very much utilized within the electronic space when it comes to like various electronic devices in that industry. Another mineral is tin, and tin is normally used for all manner of electronics, but more specifically also for food cans as well as containers. So this also is a mineral that's really essential for the purposes of like packaging of various different products. And then another mineral that the DRC has is gold, and we know that gold is often used in luxury items, whether it is like jewelry or any other kind of like ornaments that people will wear. And yeah, the country contributes immensely, both at a global both in the sense of global as well as in local markets. The same can be said for their other mineral, which is diamonds. And again, also diamonds also have like one of the largest producers of diamonds in the world. And one of the movies I often refer to, if you want to understand how this this reality of conflict and political instability plays out when it comes to these minerals, is a movie called Blood Diamond. I will put it over here. Guys, definitely go watch it. Like, I feel like it's still so relevant to everything that's happening today, even though in this particular movie they're only focusing on the mineral that is diamonds. I do think that it could literally fit the narrative for like all these other minerals that the Congo essentially trades in and essentially has. So lithium is also a mineral that the DRC has. This is used for the batteries for EVs, smartphones, laptops. It's also a component that is used for like mental health treatment, also for like heat resistant glassware. The list, as you can see, is endless, but essentially this is a very critical mineral for the battery industry. We also have magnesium, and magnesium allows for the strengthening of steel in terms of its durability. And so again, very much a huge component when it comes to like the global steel industry. Zinc is another mineral that the DRC has, and zinc is used to just essentially make sure that like steel doesn't rust, or rather rust that quickly. In terms of alloys, it's also used in like brass, bronze, and various other kinds of alloys that exist. And this particular mineral is really essential for construction and manufacturing of like an array of things. We then move on to uranium. Uranium is a primary fuel for nuclear power plants, and beyond that, it's also used for radiation treatments. It's also used in nuclear weapons, and we know the countries that love playing around with those. We're not gonna name any, but y'all know what I'm talking about. And so the DRC has really historically been a significant uranium producer, though its production has declined in recent decades. This mineral I'm about to mention is one that I really didn't know about, so if I'm not pronouncing it properly, I apologize in advance. But it's called tungsten, and it's used for cutting tools, drilling bits, as well as for armor piercing ammunition. So this is really for like the defense sector and industry. So everything that I guess has to deal with weaponry, this kind of mineral will be utilized. And then we have good old silver. As we know, it's used also in luxury items, as well as, like in just everyday, appliances and, tableware as well. It also has got other uses in the areas of like photography, medicine. So we know like silver can be used in like many different things, depending, I guess, on just what is being made. And then we have iron ore, and then which is a primary raw material for steel. Again, the DRC serves as a significant producer of this, because it has got large, like really huge iron ore deposits within the country. We then have nickel, and nickel is used also in stainless steel production, and it also is used alongside a lot of other like alloys, but again predominantly like it features in the steel as well as like battery like industries. And then another one that I also learned about, which I really didn't know of, is the rare earth elements, so REEs, and these are like just for high performance magnets that are used in like wind turbines, EVs, electronics, and again, not only is it used in electronic devices, but also for military defense weapons as well. So we can see that it is a very critical mineral for very advanced technology to be manufactured. So in summary, we can see that a great deal of like the DRC's minerals are very, very needed in a lot of our everyday products that we use, not only just like electronics as tablewares, but it's also utilized in a lot of like the advanced technologies that are currently coming up within the whole AI space. So as we can see, this is a country that is literally serving as a foundation for a lot of industries, or rather a backbone for like just the continuance and the efficiency and the growth and the development of a lot of industries around the world. So as you can see, there's good reason for why a lot of people might want to have their hands in the pie, because this is a nice pie, okay? That's what it is. And so now that we have an understanding of all the minerals that the DRC has and essentially trades in, I want to now go and talk about who are the biggest, exporters of these minerals. The biggest one at the moment is China. And this is understandably so. China is really coming up as like a tech hub, and just the innovations that they are coming with are just completely endless, and obviously followed through by the USA. Another big exporter of the DRC and their minerals is the UAE. I have mentioned in previous videos of how the UAE is really coming up as a huge investor within the African continent. We also see that Belgium plays in a bit of a role, serving as a key trading partner within the DRC, particularly for its minerals of diamonds as well as copper. Another regional or local rather player is South Africa. And South Africa normally, exports copper as well as cobalt from the DRC. And then smaller, exporters would be your Rwandas, your Ugandas, Tanzania and Zambia. Now, something I found to be interesting in terms of like the criteria, or rather the hierarchy, right, of exporters, is that we are often told that Uganda and Rwanda, one of the two, are the ones who are sponsoring the M23. But for me, I'm like, this doesn't make sense if they are the ones who are considered as one of the smaller, exporting or trading partners within the larger scale of things, right? Because my thing is like, okay, in as much as yes, they might, let's go with the narrative that they want to cause the political instability for the purposes of getting whatever minerals that they can get. I'm like, you wouldn't be getting that much if already you were a small fish in this very big pond. Like, are you guys catching? Am I like making sense with this theory, or am I in the clouds alone? But for me, that was one thing that just the dots were not connecting and aligning from that point of view, or rather from that narrative that we were being given, right? And then I also want to just give other key stats, right, in terms of these minerals that I just mentioned. And I'm going to just read this. I'll also have it on the screen. But the DRC produces, as I stated, 70% of the world's cobalt, with China importing the majority. And then when it comes to copper, they are, DRC, the largest, right, producer, with them exporting over 1.5 million metric tons annually. Again, China being a primary destination. Then we also have the mineral that is gold, and DRC produces an estimated 20 to 30 tons of gold annually, with the UAE and Switzerland being the major trading hubs. Then when it comes to coltan, the DRC supplies a significant portion to Rwanda and China as key exporters. Then finally, when it comes to diamonds, the DRC produces over 10 million carats of diamonds annually, with Belgium being the primary trading hub. Again, I'm bringing this up because if we are going to run with the narrative of the way for us to understand the reason for a war or a conflict is to know who's benefiting the most. I think I've given like quite a good enough list of who's actually benefiting from this. And I want to reiterate this point because in many cases across Africa, not just in DRC, a lot of the coups or any kind of like instability has always been influenced by external parties having their own self-interest, those self-interests being predominantly rooted in their desire to have our access to our minerals at like little to nothing, right? And so again, for us to understand who would benefit from Congo not being stable, from Congo not being a country that is afforded the opportunity, the chance, the time to really develop, become democratic, have its people really, flourish, to realize the potentials that they should be able to realize as citizens, we need to be able to look at who is already benefiting the most. And then also, I say all this to say that there is a lot of challenges, right, that come with tracking the DRC's exports. These statistics, I personally believe, do not even tell obviously the full story or give us the full picture of actually how much or how many minerals are actually leaving the country. And obviously this is in part due to issues such as informal trade, right, with, you know, various groups, whether it's armed groups, whether it's warlords, or whatever it is, smuggling in goods through like various different ways. It can also be due to lack of transparency, right? And you know, in the previous video we talked about a weakened governance system, as well as corruption. And then also, again, this ongoing conflict that has been consistently happening throughout these years, it serves to undermine our ability to be able to really assess how much is actually leaving the DRC and who exactly it is going to, right? So with that, I want to then move on to the second part, which is where we're going to be talking about, I believe, another, you know, huge underlying reason as to why most probably we are seeing everything we are seeing right now with the DRC, and that is the hydropower project. And so with this section, I'm going to be sharing some statistics. Again, if I'm just looking down here, I'm just looking at my notes, making sure that I'm staying on track. And I want to just share these statistics as well, because this is a project that could literally change the lives of billions of people, not only in our continent as Africans, but in other continents as well, right? So if you do not know what this hydropower project is, this is basically a project that would utilize, you know, hydropower within the DRC to give electricity to the entire continent, as well as, I believe, it's some parts to in Europe and some parts in the UAE. I will just put the correct facts over here, right? And so these are the key facts to note when it comes to this particular project. The first is that the DRC has an estimated 100,000, I believe it's megawatts, of hydropower potential, which is about 13% of the world's total hydropower potential, right? But right now, currently as it stands, right, in terms of where the project is, it is what you call this at 3% in terms of like realizing its full potential. So in terms of like the Inga Dam, there has been like various stages that it has like been happening in. And when I say happening in, I don't mean in terms of like actual construction and everything happening. I mean in terms of just like phases of discussions and various like groups and parties. Just need to check the mic if it's still on. Various groups and parties expressing interest and you know their desire to invest, or rather pulling out, vice versa, right? Now, in terms of regional impact, if fully developed, the Grand Inga Dam could supply electricity to over 500 million people across Africa. And this is also just such a phenomenal feat, in that it would also like significantly reduce our reliance on fossil fuels, thereby cutting carbon emissions significantly, right? And this is a very important thing to note, considering the fact that Africans in the last COPs that have been happening have literally been going to, you know, COPs really asking for countries to fulfill their commitments. And it's just so unfortunate, because it's like, if the necessary funds were put into just this one project alone, it would completely like remove that element of, I guess, us having to go and ask people to fulfill, you know, commitments that they made to try and solve a situation that was for the most part caused by them, but we are suffering the consequences of. You get what I'm saying? So the main stakeholders that are involved is the DRC government, who is the one that will obviously oversee the development of the project. South Africa has also played a significant role in how they have purchased a portion of the electricity that would be generated from this. And then we also have your international organizations such as the World Bank, which initially expressed interest and was wanting to back this project, but then eventually they pulled out of concerns for like environmental and social impact. But then the ADB, which is the African Development Bank, also has expressed interest in wanting to fund this, as well as the International Energy Agency, which has highlighted the importance of the DRC's hydropower potential for Africa's energy future. I'll also list here like just other companies that have also wanted to be a part of this current initiative. In terms of, you know, opposition, right, that has been coming up to this, you know, projects being fully realized, there has been a lot of environmental groups who have essentially, we talked about how the construction of this dam would disrupt the Congo River's ecosystem. There would be a great loss of biodiversity, increased risk of landslides and earthquakes. Also, there have been, you know, concerns from the local communities who, you know, have mentioned that they would lose a lot of like agricultural land as well as fishing grounds, as well as, you know, concerns about displacements, because obviously a project of this magnitude would obviously have to see a lot of like geographical shifts around the Congo River for those who are currently inhabiting areas around there, right? And so other key challenges to, you know, this development is obviously the issue of funding and financing. There's an estimated cost of about 80 to 100 billion dollars, thus making it one of the most expensive infrastructure projects in the whole entire world. And then obviously the issue of like political instability plays a huge role in just like donors and or rather investment confidence in the projects, in the ability for the project to be like really fully realized rather. Also, there has been a huge issue of like infrastructure deficits, and how just many have stated that the DRC lacks the infrastructure to transmit electricity from the Inga site to other parts of the country as well as the region. And then obviously, as I've stated earlier, just some of the environmental and social concerns that have come up, right? And I think all of these concerns are definitely valid, are definitely, you know, ones that need to be considered. But I also do think that for a project obviously of this magnitude, these are normal things that would arise as concerns and would obviously have to be, you know, considered in terms of how they will be mitigated as the project is developed, right? Now, as you would see, this is a project that is not only the most expensive, but in it being the most expensive, it would have the most benefits for Africans across the whole entire continent. And I ultimately believe that alongside this issue of minerals, right, this project is one of the other projects that serve as an indicator of just the immense potential that the DRC has in terms of it changing the game as being a global player. Because right now, guys, we need to understand that the future is looking very different because of conversations that are happening around energy and, you know, what you call this clean, having a clean future, climate resistance and the like, right? So this kind of conversation could obviously see a shift, right, in power dynamics in terms of just also how we choose to develop, right, as a whole entire world, as a whole entire globe. And so I think that this project also serves again as just like a marker of how there's a lot of great potential within our continent that many know of, but it is intentionally for a number of reasons, some which I've listed here and maybe others that I don't even know of. A number of reasons these projects are not allowed to be fully realized or even see the light of day in terms of development, simply because there is a very clear understanding of how the manifestation of these kind of projects would completely shift power. So because time is on our side, I'm going to leave it there. But I do hope that with this little that I have been able to share, it has been able to spark your thoughts, to ask different questions, to really start considering other things that maybe we have been told and we have not been told when it comes to this consistent conflict that has been happening in the DRC. Because there is more to this than just a rebel group that is trying to take over territories and trying to assert its dominance for whatever reasons that we have been listed. There is such a bigger picture when it comes to the DRC, which is really reflective of just the relationship of the entire continent with the rest of the world, which is the fact that for a long time, we have as a continent intentionally been kept on our knees, because there's been a clear understanding that should we be allowed to stand in the fullness of our power as a people, a lot will look very different in the world. And so with that, I'm going to leave it there, and we are going to move on to women across Africa. Okay guys, we are now in Women Across Africa because time has just ran away. I'm going to like really speed through these two articles, and the first article is one that is from Kenya, and it's just you know, an announcement of how 9 women lose their lives daily to cervical cancer. You know, and for me, I really wanted to bring up this story because of the fact that the total amount, right, of like women who die from this in Kenya in a year is 300. Excuse me, sorry, it's 3,000. That's a lot, right? And this is like a number of women who are dying from a disease that has been categorized as the world's second killer disease, right? And what you call this, this article had listed how there is 5,226 new cases of cervical cancer that are reported yearly in Kenya, and worldwide 10 million people die as a result of cancer. Now, I want to bring this story up because it speaks to something that I think we don't, as always, you know, issues that we don't talk about enough, that I always feel like we need to discuss. The fact that women, as women, we are taught to be everything to everyone else and nothing for ourselves, right? And what this just essentially means that in places like, you know, us having to tend to our health and, you know, do our annual health checkups, we tend to often delay that because we are literally having to be responsible for, you know, the entire families, you know, communities, you know, colleagues in the workplace. Like, as women, we are just natural givers and nurturers, and oftentimes it means that we put ourselves last. And I think that this kind of statistics kind of also alludes to that kind of reality. And, you know, I really do hope that one of the things that, you know, women will be able to do, not just only in Kenya but around the world, is that they will be able to, you know, find ways in which they can prioritize their health, whether it's their mental health, emotional health, physical health, but also prioritize themselves in other ways. Because as we all know from the famous psychological quote, you cannot pour from an empty cup. And I think that this statistic is really driving the point home about how women really need to make sure that they themselves are first filled up before they can effectively continue to give to others. Because what is the point of you constantly giving and it will only just result in you having premature deaths by something that could have been you know, what you call this, realized earlier, right? Could have been picked up sooner had you had the time, right, to really just pay attention and, you know, take care of oneself. So with that, I just want to say to all my female, you know, viewers, and even to my male viewers, like to encourage the women in your life to like just go and regularly check up on themselves, you know, and just regularly put or do things that will ensure that they are putting themselves first and they are filled, right, so that they can be better sisters, better wives, better mothers, better colleagues, better you know, bosses to everyone else, because of how they have made sure that they themselves are in a good place, right? And so now we're going to move on to the second story, which is taking us to Somalia, and it is really just such a, you know, inspiring, beautiful story that just tells the tale of like just the impossibilities that exist when it comes to humanity's ability to just look out for one another. So in Somalia, there is a factory that turns plastic into jobs for displaced women. So as we know, there have been a lot of like Somalians who have been displaced for, you know, a number of reasons, and this factory here just allows for women who are able to like just pick up, you know, the plastic around their communities of Mogadishu, to go and put that plastic in this factory, and in return they get money as a result. And obviously this is affording you know, these displaced women a livelihood, to look after themselves, to look after their children, you know, to ensure that they can be able to have a future for themselves, something which a lot of displaced people do not have the opportunity to have access to, simply because of how in many cases most are in like refugee camps of some sort, or if they are in the countries, they don't have the necessary like paperwork to allow them to participate within the societies that they are in, and really ensure that they realize their own aspirations that they might have for their lives, right? And this is also helping just the community from an environmental point of view, because we know, guys, like many a times this discarded plastic, it goes into the oceans, it just like goes on the streets and it's eaten. The article was listing about how sometimes it will be eaten by animals. I believe it's I think she's listed cows, right, or cattle that will eat the plastic. And guys, at the end of the day, it's humans as well who eat the cattle. So if the cattle has got something that is polluted in its own body, it's obviously going to have some kind of negative effect on us humans ultimately down the road. So as you can see, this one solution is it's like a multi-pronged solution to so many problems, right, that are existing, which is obviously the issue of pollution. It's helping the environment by making it clean. It's providing jobs for women who most normally in their situation would not be able to get a job or would often be overlooked. So I really loved this story because it just really again goes to show just the power of our ability to use sometimes even the simplest of solutions to change not only just lives, but a great number of circumstances that are existing within our community. So really love that. If you guys can, definitely check out the article because it had so many other things that it listed. And so guys, having shared those wonderful news, we're going to move on to Woman of the Week. As always, if you have made it to this part of the show with me, you are the bomb. Come. Anyways, guys, thank you so much as always for making it to this part of the show. Really, truly, it always serves to be sometimes the favorite part, my favorite part of the show, because it's just like, it helps us leave on a light note, on a happy note, on an inspired note, on an empowered note. You know what I'm saying? And so this Woman of the Week takes us to Botswana, and we are meeting Makwana, and she is the co-founder and CEO of Viva Organica, and it is a company that is based in Botswana. And what it does is that it provides sustainable agricultural services, leveraging technology to transform organic waste into high performance biofertilizers. Guys, the stories from this week have just had me on some, guys. The ladies are doing the things that need to be done. You understand what I'm saying? And I really just love this because one of the things that the founder says is that she is using green innovations, and she's bringing that to sub-Saharan Africa to help basically reverse the land degradation and restore soil fertility within the area. And this is, guys, just such an amazing thing because for a lot of farmers within sub-Saharan Africa, the only thing that they are relying on is their indigenous knowledge systems, and oftentimes tools that are very much outdated and allows for a very small output in terms of their produce or harvest, right? And so to be able to have somebody just really bridge the technological advancements with the current existing indigenous knowledge systems that the people have, I mean, that is what we that is a baby we love, right? That is a game changer that we are here for. And I really loved the story because again, it just goes to show that this is what African solutions for African problems looks like. So guys, I hope that you love it as much as I did when I came across it. And so with that, I am going to now say goodbye to you guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. The conversation doesn't end over here. It also continues in the chats. I really do love to always hear your opinions and to just engage with you all. And as always, thank you always to the subscribers that have joined. I've seen there's like a number of newbies, and to all those, I just say hi. I say thank you very much for joining the community, and I'm excited for everything that we are going to do together. With that, guys, thank you so much for joining me for another amazing episode. Till we meet again, which is going to be very soon. Stay well and have a great week ahead. Bye.
Growing up, I spent a lot of time in nature. And this was on weekends where my parents and I would drive up to our farm to tend to the land. And through that, I got to experience firsthand how food is grown and how it interacts with the natural world. Hi, my name is Makwena Moesi. I am the co-founder and CEO of Viva Organica. At Viva Organica, we leverage biotech processes to provide organic inputs to our farming communities and spread the knowledge and awareness on best sustainable practices. So the process starts with first collecting our waste, sourcing our waste, and then we take this waste through a pre-composting process and thereafter introduce them to our worm pods. The worms then, along with the microbes that have been growing in the organic waste, they consume the organic waste, and as the waste runs through the gut of the worm, it's then fortified with humic acids, plant growth hormones, and the end product being vermicompost or loosely worm poop is the gold that we're looking for. So we aim to do this by ensuring that we are as sustainable as possible from how we source our raw materials and the actual products and services that we provide.